bullshit. I don't like when people lie to me or themselves, because it's just a waste of time. You can't lie to yourself in the water.
There are some people who run from struggle, who avoid confrontation and responsibility, who expect things to happen for them and fast. There are others who seek knowledge and improvement through struggle, who roll up sleeves and put in work over time to build something on a foundation of values they believe in, staying open and honest all the while. Such a man is Joe Falcone.
I come from a lineage of guys that always stood by what they said, like word is bond, you know.
Joe is a surfboard shaper out of Rockaway Beach, New York,
As local as it gets.
who has been building his business over the years out of his mother's garage, also known as the casino, of the home he grew up in. Establishing himself as one of the leading shapers in the Northeast, Joe's business continues to expand, growth that is at once encouraging and daunting.
And I'm scared a little bit, because I've never had to manage something so big and with such accuracy.
With a commitment to improvement and the innate Rockaway resolve of rising to the challenge, the future looks compelling for Joe, who remains thankful through it all, whatever might come next.
I've been quite lucky, quite spoiled in my life. And, I just remind myself on a daily basis to just be thankful for the things that I have.
Please enjoy this conversation with the board shaping, straight shooting, wave riding craftsman, Mr. Joe Falcone. But first, thank you to Steve, Justin, Bruno, and Jeff of A Nave Especial, who nicely shared all the great music you'll hear on this episode. Here we go. Easing into it, but I'm just going to check the levels here.
Test.
I think that should be good.
Okay.
Sweet. Well, thanks for finally doing this.
Yeah. You're welcome. I'm stoked to be doing this.
Nice.
My schedule is so crazy, so it's really hard to nail it down. I'm a one-man show, so
Yeah.
It's a little bit tough and overwhelming, especially now that my business is growing.
You work out in Rockaway Beach.
I work in the garage of my childhood home.
Nice.
When I moved out of my mom's house, I moved into this apartment where we're at now.
Yeah.
And it's been 6-7 years here.
Nice.
I was spending months renovating this place. I did a big gut renovation, and so right when I finished that, it coincidentally landed about a week before Hurricane Sandy hit.
Oh, geez.
So we had just moved in, and I was really amped on riding out that storm at my house in Rockaway.
Yeah.
My whole shaping room got trashed.
Shoot.
Every tool that I've ever had in there was gone. I didn't have the money to get new tools, and the damage was pretty bad.
Yeah. It must have been insane, as it was, I'm sure, for anybody in New York, but especially out there during Sandy. What was that like?
Out there was insane.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like it. It was just not sanitary to live there.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was mud, oil.
Yeah.
My mom has black and white checkerboard marble floors in Rockaway, and you couldn't even see the marble.
Yeah.
It was covered in dirt and grease,
Jeez.
about an inch thick.
And
we were slopping
yeah.
around in there.
And you lost all any progress you had made as a shaper. It was kind of washed away, in terms of your tools and
tools,
stuff.
Yeah, tangible things.
Yeah.
Were gone. Yeah, tools, and I'd spent a lot of money on tools. I bought nice shit. I always lived by the philosophy that a poor man can't afford cheap tools.
How long did it take for you to get back on track?
Actually, rather quickly.
Yeah.
I have a really good friend named Greg Wachstetter, who's a trader, and he trades in commodities, I believe. And he makes a really healthy living. And he wanted to help me out. He had donated already, and to Red Cross and all these organizations and stuff. But he wanted to give some money to someone that he knew that he could help. And I didn't want to take it, but he invited me out for a drink one night, and I could definitely use one because it had been a month and a half straight out there every day. putting on waders and work boots, and my feet hurt and my back hurt, and I would go to different friends' houses who had like single moms as well, and we were like axing doors down off the hinges because we just didn't have the right tools. Like I didn't have a screw gun I was walking around with, or like an impact driver or something to like take doors off hinges and stuff. People were just trying to get like refrigerators out of their house because food was rotting and there was no power, no electric, and I was just going around helping people. Me and my brothers got this coach bus load of students from Florida State University. Had gotten our house taken care of right away. We like cut the drywall down. We removed all the soaking wet insulation. We got it down, stripped down pretty bare bones pretty quickly. And Tyler hooked us up with this guy Scott, who had a team of people that helped us gut our basement, and they chainsawed our pool table in half because that was really hard to move. And it was a hectic time, but I actually enjoyed it, to be honest. You know, I kind of wouldn't trade it for to go back to what Rockaway was before that, and in terms of crowds and popularity and where it is on the map for a lot of people.
Yeah. What did you enjoy about it?
I just enjoyed the connectivity. I'd never seen like my community, and my community's a real tight one out there. I'd never seen my community really band together like that. Like it was crazy to see how much people really cared for each other and were like working with each other and helping each other. And just asking how you're doing. Yeah. Do you need help? You know, those are questions you don't really get like regularly anywhere, really. You know, like we're in New York, you know, they came here to like prove something to themselves. If they hadn't been here since childhood, you know, they came here to make something of themselves and, you know, start climbing that ladder, you know?
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's interesting how like, it often takes some sort of tragedy or crisis for people to really be reaching out to each other, to be welcoming each other, to be asking if you need help or...
Yeah, well, I think we all just live too comfortably here, you know? I think that America is like pretty fucking comfortable, you know? And we're like sedated on like just everything around us, you know?
Yeah.
TV, Instagram, and, you know, or whatever it is, you know, that you keep up with on the daily to like prevent yourself from being present.
Right.
Or being available for people. It's definitely become more of a practice for me to like to be conscious of that and fight that.
Yeah.
You know, so I really try to be the change that I want to see in the world, because it's a nice feeling to feel that. And why can't that happen every day? Why does it take a tragedy for people to like really kind of wake up and look at everyone around them and you know, consciously and concerned, you know?
I'm glad you brought up the premise of awareness and presence, because being in the moment, being focused, and I wanted to ask you about how that relates to your work, or how it relates to surfing.
I mean, everything, almost every bit of my life allows me to practice that. Yeah. I live here with my wife alone. We don't have a kid yet.
You have Juno.
Yeah, we have Juno. I reserve my outgoingness and people skills when I'm working at Pilgrim, because most of my week is spent in silence.
Yeah.
I listen to audiobooks and podcasts while I'm working, and I'm in the garage by myself. And ever since I stopped smoking weed back in June, it's like a lot of friends of mine would like come over when they came home from work, and we'd smoke a joint. But now that I don't smoke, those friends we don't have those traditions like where they'd come over after work and we'd spark one up. And, you know, a lot of my friends kind of quit smoking or quit smoking as much as well when I stopped, because it's like this support system, you know, you got your buddies that all kind of you blaze up with all the time. And it's just interesting. But yeah, I think ever since that happened, I really like it. I'm enjoying like just not being mentally foggy. And now I'm like hyper conscious and aware of a lot of things, and I have a fiery personality, so I'm pretty quiet most of the time, but I'm like a beast that will get awakened at times, and once you awaken the beast, it's hard to put it back to sleep, which is also something that I've become hyper aware of during this really conscious time spent alone.
Yeah.
And I think the next step is like figuring out how to control that. I don't know. I'm at this point now. I'm 32 years old, and my business is getting very difficult for me to manage. It was getting difficult for me to manage being high all the time. And I just felt bad because I was like letting certain people down, and I really wasn't fully 110% like being a man of my word. And I didn't like that because I don't come from men that are like that.
Right.
I come from a lineage of guys that always stood by what they said.
Right.
Like
responsible.
Word is bond, you know?
Yeah, well, good for you, setting a good example, being the change.
Yeah.
So it's becoming hard for you to manage because it's growing.
It's growing, yeah. And I don't think that it can be what it really can be. I don't think it'll ever be what it really could be unless I like allow myself to become like the best version of myself. And I've never seen that person before. I've never experienced that person, you know. I was very sober and very clear-headed when I was young. I didn't smoke weed from like 15 to 25. And I didn't really drink that much either. There were a couple weekend, you know, like I'd go out with my friends sometimes on the weekend and get hammered, but you know, it wasn't like a regular thing. And I was really kind of samurai-esque back in those days. And I just want to tap into that again. You know, I'm getting older and I'm feeling my body differently than I did then. And I just want to pay attention to it all. And that's what I'm focusing on doing right now. It's not easy for me. So I would never be able to do it unless I like stepped up to this plate in a way. So it's like mental clarity and mental well-being. And then next up is like, you know, first is mind, next is body, you know?
Yep.
So naturally going to the gym is like pretty boring for a guy like me because I get my excitement from like these special things that like are delivered from nature, you know. Waves are just like magical. So it's really hard to find other things exciting after you know what the feeling of being on a wave is like.
Right.
I skateboard around and stuff, but I don't do tricks because I'm afraid to hurt my wrists or hands, or I can't surf. I can't make money either. Right. You know, I make money with my hands, so if I hurt my hands, it's pointless.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess you got to look at it like look at the workout as a way to like fortify yourself from getting hurt, and then also make you better at the thing you love. You know,
totally.
Versus it just being going to the gym as an end in itself.
Totally.
You know.
And I've been getting more injured just working.
Yeah. Just
like repeated stress injuries. So I think that's really the next big step for me is like getting my body in shape enough to like handle the beat down of like shaping boards all day long and sanding boards and doing repairs. And I don't do a lot of repairs, but sometimes when I'm having a slow month with orders and stuff, I'll do repairs to catch up, make sure I'm making the right amount of money I need to be making every month, you know, to make the right amount of money every year that I need to make at least minimum, you know?
Yep.
And, so that's what's up next.
Could you describe the process, just kind of high level, for someone who doesn't know anything about making a surfboard?
Materials are either EPS, which is basically styrofoam, or polyurethane foam. I mostly use polyurethane foam, although I've been experimenting a lot with the EPS stuff because it's a little bit more reusable. You can rip the fiberglass shell off at some point when the board is dead, mulch up that styrofoam, and have it recycled and pressed back into a styrofoam block, which could be used for insulation. I don't think it could actually go back into being a surfboard because you want like the factory made block pressing of that. I think the beads go through too much trauma when they get recycled that they can't really be made into surfboards again. But so what I do is I get the blank. It comes with a bit of a skin on it. The polyurethane is basically expanding foam that they mix up a slurry like a giant bucket, and they spill it into a clamshell mold. They clamp it and then they pressurize it so that the expanding foam has a very uniform granular pattern in it, and there's not too many air bubbles, although I've been getting a lot with air bubbles. So I'll skin it with my planer. There's usually a strip of wood down the center for strength called the stringer, and then you take that down with a block plane. You make sure it's flush with the foam. I scrub it all out, sculpt it all down to a surfboard into the shape that I want, and have the proper bottom contours and curves that I want. Scrub it all down with a nice piece of 220 grit sandpaper and a foam pad, so it looks really nice. And then I will take that out to a fiberglass guy who puts sheets of fiberglass and wets them out with resin, wraps the rails with fiberglass, and then flips it over, does the other side, puts the fins in, and then it's ready for surf.
So how long does that take?
2 days, start to finish, shaped and glassed. I work in batches of like 10 or 15, so I'll do like 10 or 15 boards, and I'll drive it out to the fiberglass guy to do, and then he'll have it for another couple weeks, which is actually pretty good timing, because if I were to shape and glass all of them, that's about how much time it would take me. You know, it might take me longer actually, because he's really good at what he does and I'm really good at what I do. So, you know, it minimizes the time spent on doing the work.
You grew up here. You started making surfboards when you were relatively young.
I was born in Rockaway. We lived there. My parents bought that house in 1980. I was born in 86. We lived there till I was about 5. And we moved to Florida for a couple of years when my dad opened up a restaurant and tried to seek this business opportunity out. That failed pretty horribly. The marriage failed pretty horribly. My dad developed a drug and alcohol problem down there, which I think was part of why the marriage didn't work. And my mom came back up to New York with 3 kids, so she raised 3 boys, me, my brother Sal, and my brother Johnny, as a single mom living in New York. She won the house back over because my dad was incapable of paying the amount of child support that he was required to pay because of his drug and alcohol addiction. He was like in a rough spot in his life, so he wasn't working. He wasn't really making money, so they agreed that my mom would take the house, and he would be free of having to pay child support. He would just have to help her out with certain things. And so she took the house back, and I moved back in there when I was 9 or 10. And I was there pretty much ever since. So we did a little jumping around in like my early years, but
Rockaway's your home.
Rockaway's my home, man. That's where I was born.
Yeah, and you were always around the ocean. I mean, it's obviously Rockaway is.
Yeah, I grew up in the ocean. I have photos of, wherever my mom has those photos. A lot of them were fucked up during Hurricane Sandy. They got damaged and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's photos of me in like on the beach in Rockaway in diapers as a kid, like with sand in my mouth, and quintessential beach kid for sure.
Yeah. And who taught you how to surf?
So my dad taught me how to surf. He first put me on a surfboard in Florida. My mom wasn't going to teach me how to surf because she didn't surf. She wasn't from that background. And when we were in Rockaway, I was like without kind of a father figure around. And that's where this guy Dennis kind of came into play. Dennis was like my neighbor who was at the beach down the block from my house all the time. He was the guy I saw on the beach most frequently. He was a retired fireman, so he had a lot of free time. I mean, he was out in the ocean a lot, so I'd follow him, and I didn't really know where to be and what to do and how to do it and where to catch the wave from, and I was having a real hard time for years, and he didn't exactly explain to me everything right away, but I would just follow him around. He'd paddle out, and I'd just paddle out right behind him, and if he moved over 20 feet, I'd moved over 20 feet. Like, I was just shadowed him.
Yeah.
And I think he kind of liked it. He took real kindly to me and started to explain things to me. And then his sons were really good surfers, but they were way older and like too cool to be hanging out with like a young kid like me. Now we're all friends and stuff, but yeah, I kind of had these like kind of substitute like father figures around that kind of taught me that stuff, where like my dad could have been like if my parents weren't divorced,
Right.
So it was cool. I was kind of raised by the community in a way.
Yeah.
It wasn't just him. There were other guys around that I really looked up to and surfed well, and I just wanted to be in the water all the time.
Yeah.
So I just was latching on to whoever was around.
Yeah. And so they kind of set the tone for you. They gave you sort of an example to look up to, and you were hooked. You were hooked early to the love of the ocean and the love of surfing once you knew it was available.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what did you like about it, or what do you like about it?
I mean, there's more of a broader scope of what surfing means to me now. But when I was a kid, it was just fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just fun, period. It's just fun.
That's all it needs to be.
It's a great way to keep active.
Yep.
And a great way to keep in shape. I wasn't looking at it like that when I was younger. I was just having fun.
Yeah.
But now that I'm older, and I'm bummed when I can't surf on the regular. Beyond just the fun part, it's fortify that sense of being here now, and being present for what's happening at the moment.
Sure.
Growing up out there as a kid, like we saw the same people all the time, and then when we didn't see them, it was empty. So nowadays it's a little bit of a challenge because there's, surfing hit the trend again.
Yeah.
As it did in like the Gidget years.
What's that?
That movie Gidget.
Oh, I never saw it.
It really caused a huge boom trend in surfing. I mean, decades ago, but I don't know what it was now, but surfing has kind of reached the mainstream again, and there's a lot more people in the water now, and a lot more people that kind of to share that time with. So it's like being halfway in a meditation,
Mm-hmm.
You can't really get lost in it the same way I did when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Because your requirement to be like knowing your position and knowing that, you may be in the water with someone that doesn't know exactly what they're doing and how to do it that well. So, I try to make sure that I'm distancing myself away from people enough to like keep my safety.
Yep.
And just theirs as well,
Sure.
Because who knows, you crash into somebody, like the person you crash into could come out unscathed and like you've split your head open on their fins or something. You never know. So nowadays it's a little frustrating because I can't really get lost in it. as often as I did when I was a kid. But it's cool too because I really like people, despite the fact that like I complain about them a lot. But it's just, it's a lack of like consciousness in people that I think I'm really complaining about,
Sure.
and it's not like the physical presence of another person.
When you were little, and Dennis or whoever it was that was teaching you and showing you the ropes, I imagine there's some sort of code or ideal kind of way to do it in terms of carrying yourself and respect for the people around you and things like that.
I mean, the way that I was kind of brought up out there was that if you're not a good surfer, you're gonna have to like hash it out on the shoulder, and you should never drop in on someone who's better than you. And it's hard to do that when you exist on the shoulder of the wave because you're just basically picking off the scraps and leftovers. But it definitely created a sense of like awareness, a sense of like spatial awareness.
Yep.
And awareness for people because I these guys were guys that like loved me and cared about me when I was a kid and always looked out for me. But they definitely like didn't give me any passes when it came to surfing.
Right.
And I don't know, I like that because it creates this sense that like, if you're not a good surfer, you shouldn't be at the peak because no one wants to sit there and watch you blow wave after wave after wave.
Yeah.
The peak is reserved for people who are like really making the best of the wave, and kind of it's a hierarchical.
Yep.
Right? Is that the word?
No, I was going to say that exact word. Yeah.
I have a different kind of respect for it because I definitely had to eat my fair share of shit growing up and like allow the big boys to just get their waves and just pick off the leftovers, and I and it was harder for me because I had to make do with the waves that they weren't taking. Mm-hmm. It's tough, but once you finally get there and they allow you to share the peak with them, it's a nice feeling. It's a feeling that like you've done it the right way, and now, when you were kind of looked at as maybe like the runt of the litter, you're now looked at with sort of equality, and it creates this sense of like, I don't know, achievement, pride.
Yeah, you've earned it.
Yeah, you've earned it,
Yeah.
and that's sort of how I've approached a lot of things. I mean, being a surfer has dictated how I am, how I exist in my life in so many ways.
How so?
I'm not really a big fan of bullshit. I don't like when people lie to me or themselves.
Yeah.
Because it's just a waste of time.
Right.
And you can't lie to yourself in the water. If you're not doing good, you know it. Mm-hmm. And if you can't handle yourself in that situation, you know it. Mm-hmm. It's the truest form of existing, I think.
Yeah.
It's scary,
Mm-hmm.
everything matters. And this sort of way of existing is it's fun to me. The water has a way of just like pulling the honesty out of you and the craft and the situation that you're in. I don't know. I always really liked that.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you find yourself getting better at it, at the process?
Definitely.
Yeah. At making the boards and at surfing?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I'm not to pat myself on
No,
the
that's-
back, but I'm pretty good at making surfboards. I
You work
think I'm
hard at
far
it.
better at making them than actually riding them.
Yeah.
But I'm aspiring to master both.
Yep.
I wouldn't say I'm a master yet because I see the ways that the guys before me do it, and they do it with such mastery.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not at that level yet.
Right.
You know.
Right. Are most of your customers New York based?
Mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got some Japanese clientele and soon to be Portuguese clientele.
Cool.
I got invited to go out there and shape, and I'm gonna go out there in April, most
to
likely.
Portugal?
Yeah, to go shape out there for this surf shop. That's kind of invited me out there to
Cool.
come shape for them.
Good for you.
Yeah, I'm psyched.
That's awesome.
And this is kind of the first year. I've been shaping for 16 years, and this is like really the first year of like 5 years, I think, that I've really dedicated like total mind, body, and soul to it. I'm at the point now where I'm like that kind of the fruits of like my labor and stress and duress
Yeah.
are like kind of blossoming a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, you're entering into the next phase, I guess.
Yeah, which is
Yeah.
fun, and I honestly I'm scared a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I've never had to manage something so big and so much with such accuracy, and you know, day to day is a struggle. You know,
Yeah.
to be honest,
Mhm.
I mean, day to day is a struggle. It really looks like I'm doing extremely well from the outside. You know, people from my Instagram and. You know, but when people ask me like, "Oh man, you're killing it," and I'm like, I just tell them, "Yeah, I'm trying."
Yeah, try. That's
Yeah,
all you can do, though.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
I'm doing a lot of work, but I'm always honest with myself and other people when they ask, like, I'm not great at some of the things that I could be better at, and I'm just trying to get better at those things, and
Yeah.
Just become better as a whole.
Yeah. I mean, that's all any of us can do, right?
Yeah.
There's a quote, a T.S. Eliot quote I really like. It's, there is only the trying, the rest is not our business. And that's, in a nutshell, just like control what you can, and really all that is your effort.
Right.
And the rest is kind of a byproduct of that, or out of your control completely. A lot of people don't even know that you can surf in New York. Like, I remember one time,
Yeah, it's great.
which is hard for you to believe as a native, but like, I think I was wearing a Pilgrim t-shirt, and I forgot where it was, not here. And someone asked me what it was. I said it's a surf shop in Brooklyn, and they laughed, and it's like, oh, yeah, because there's so much surfing in New York. And I was like, actually, there is.
Yeah, I mean, when those people say that stuff, I like.
Well,
I almost don't say anything. And I'm like,
Yeah.
go figure,
No
just
surf here.
because I don't want to
Yeah.
tell anyone anymore. It's already so crazy blown out. But yeah, surfing's been a thing in New York for a really long time. I don't know exactly how the story goes, but apparently Duke Kahanamoku came here and did some surf lessons. I believe it was actually in Long Beach. A lot of people say it was in Rockaway, but I heard that was false.
Yeah.
I don't know what to believe really, but
And what year is this? Or what around?
I believe this was in the early, late 50s, early 60s.
Okay. And who was it?
Duke Kahanamoku.
And who's Hawaiian?
He's he's like the godfather of surfing,
Cool.
or looked at as like the godfather of surfing in a lot of ways.
And you go year round?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't really be a surfer and not surf year round.
Yeah.
If you're not surfing year round,
You're a hobbyist?
pretty much,
Yeah.
or you're definitely like not keen on getting better.
Right.
You know,
Right.
you can't skip months on end because there's a whole period of time that you'll have to get back on a board and sort of iron out the kinks and stuff before you start really feeling comfy on your feet again. And I get that from like, weeks, if it's like if 3 weeks had gone by, which we're going through right now, it's been like 2 weeks since I surfed last.
Yeah.
And we just haven't had any swell, so there's not really much I can do about it. It's tough, you have to surf year round, or it's tough, being a surfer in New York and surfing year round will test the shit out of you.
Yeah.
Who you are, how long you can stay in the water, whether you can handle being dunked into ice cold water and wiping out and pushed underwater and getting stuck under there while your face feels like it's freezing off, and it's pretty painful on good days. And it's a true testament to like what one's commitment is to surfing.
Yeah. Full immersion. Full commitment.
Total.
Yeah.
I train a lot in the winter by like just putting on trunks and going for a swim.
No way.
With trunks, yeah.
Just to keep yourself sharp.
You keep your senses pretty strong. You can withstand the cold a little bit better if you immerse yourself in it regularly, and you can change the way that your body regulates temperature, and how long you can withstand the cold. You kind of actually like, I don't know if you like physically develop like a thicker layer of skin, but it certainly feels like you do.
You mentioned while you're making your boards that you're listening to audiobooks and stuff.
Yeah, I'm listening to this book right now called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. It's about kind of breaking the mental blocks that we set for ourselves.
Yeah.
And believing that we can get to this higher place.
Cool.
Mentally, physically, monetarily.
Mm-hmm.
And how to be aware of the roadblocks that we create for ourselves.
Yep.
It's really interesting. You should definitely give it a read or a listen.
When did you realize that you could do it? Like it could be your thing, like your full
surfboard making.
Yeah.
Not until about like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I always thought it was going to be this thing, and a lot of the guys that I looked up to and talked to in the early years of shaping had always told me, like Malcolm Campbell from Campbell Brothers Bonzer, don't quit your day job. And I always thought that was what I had to do. I had to have like a regular job and then just do the surfboards. But I think what prompted that was like this kind of explosion of popularity in surfing in New York. And I thought like I had this very clear realization while I was working at Pilgrim in the early years when we first opened that like I had basically been training my whole life for this moment, and surfing is more popular than it's ever been in New York.
Right.
And if anyone is going to do it in New York City, it's going to be me.
Yeah.
Because I had been doing this my whole life.
Right.
Pretty much, or what felt like it.
Right. And you are,
or what feels like
Rockaway Beach. Like that's your world.
That is my world.
Yeah.
I'm as local as it gets.
Yeah.
I'm there more than I'm anywhere else.
Yeah.
And I work at Pilgrim 2 days a week.
Pilgrim is a surf store in Williamsburg.
Yeah, it's a surf shop in Williamsburg, owned by a guy named Chris, who your listeners probably already know.
Yeah, Chris Gentile, episode 15,
Chris and I
maybe?
have been a pair for a long time. And when I heard that shop was opening, I thought, like, that's all I wanted to work at. Every day off that I had, I went there and I worked for free.
To Pilgrim.
I just didn't, to Mollusk.
Oh, to Mollusk, yeah.
And that was how I met Chris, and I just, like, worked for free for, like, weeks as, like, just incentive for him to hire me because I wasn't taking no for an answer. Yeah. I was finally going to work in a cool surf shop that I really liked, that I kind of felt I connected with. I just wasn't having no as an answer. So I just stuck around and put in hard work and, I'd go leave at the end of the day and show up the next day and be ready to do whatever I needed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that was like run to the hardware store or paint some shelves and, sand the edges on this, sand the corners on this thing or whatever it was. Because I knew that working at that shop would allow me to like learn more from people that like really knew what was going on with surfboards. It wasn't just like a random guy that owned a shop, you know. Chris was very in tune and still is very in tune with surfing and surfboards and has a lot of knowledge around that stuff. And then the other people that I was around, I knew it would be a great learning experience.
Yeah.
And it was cool.
That's important.
Being there for that. So when he opened up Pilgrim, he called upon the original crew, and I had been working in fashion, so I was like, I work freelance as a photographer, but I'll take 2 days a week.
Yeah.
I'll work on the weekends, and I'll keep my Monday through Friday open because most of my clients are not shooting on Saturday and Sunday. So I work like some weeks, 7-day weeks. When I had a full week of shooting and then a weekend, I'd work Monday through Sunday.
Yeah.
And being in that store and then watching the boom of surfing happen in New York, it really just got me so jazzed to get back on the planer like consistently. So it wasn't long after that where I just phased out of doing photo work and focusing more on shaping. And
if there's a young person or you have a son or a daughter who wants to surf,
I don't want to push anyone to do anything. And I've oftentimes seen kids become very spooked because they were being pushed to have an experience in the ocean, and the ocean gave them a little bit of a whooping.
Yeah.
And then they don't want to go back to it again.
Right.
I wasn't like that as a kid. I really just was gravitated towards the water, so I didn't have that problem. Hopefully, me and my wife have been talking about having a kid. Probably likely try in the next year or so. I just need some time to get my business to a place that I need it to be in order to like raise a family. It's okay for us now, but having a kid is a massive expense, and I need to be able to count on my business in ways that I don't right now. I don't know. When I have a kid, I really hope they'll surf, boy or girl. I think they will because they'll understand what an important part it is to their father's life. My wife doesn't surf, but I can't exist without it. It'd be a tough one to sort of figure out how to be happy without surfing because I can't imagine my life without it.
What else? You mentioned in the beginning that you're working on being more present, and like what else do you have a routine or anything else that you're working on specifically?
I mean, my routine is my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
I focus all the time.
Yeah, right.
I when I speak to people, I speak to their heart. I'm very, like I said, I don't like bullshit, so I'm not really too soft with people often. I've got to become better at that.
Yeah.
I can be kind of harsh sometimes, but it's all to just have a real, true conversation, an honest conversation. And, when I ask people how they're doing, I'm like really asking them how are they?
Yeah.
How are you?
Right.
Like, are you okay?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And that's just like a daily practice. I don't know if it's like I do anything specifically.
Yeah.
But I mean, even when it comes to like picking vegetables from my garden, like I'm very present for that, and I'm also like aware of how thankful I am to like even have a garden to pick from, and eat something so simple as like my wife tells me to go downstairs and get some basil for this salad. We're gonna make like a basil salad dressing or something, and I go downstairs to get basil, and I just like the other day I did it, and I just said to myself like, man, I'm so lucky to have this, you know?
Yeah.
Because I know people that like tell me like, yo, your garden's so sick, but like, in all reality, like I would love to have a farm,
Yeah.
you know, like a way bigger garden. This feels like nothing to me, but you know, I realize for some people, like a garden is like a couple pots on a fire escape.
Yep.
And, you know, I've been quite lucky, quite spoiled in my life. And, you know, I just remind myself on a daily basis to just be thankful for the things that I have.
Yeah, and that's a good place to come from too. Good way to start the day in that frame of mind.
Yeah, it puts you in a good place,
Yeah.
you know. It makes you appreciative, you know, and focus less on the bullshit, even though, you know, I'm a sucker for that sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, people know they can it's like they can press my buttons in ways to get me activated.
Yeah.
And I try to give people less of that power of me
Yeah.
these days, you know,
Yeah.
especially now that I'm not smoking weed, you know, I'm way more calculated.
Mm-hmm.
Way more calculated with everything.
Yeah.
So I'm less likely to waste my time on someone that doesn't deserve it.
Yeah. Yeah. Part of the reason I love doing this show and part of the reason I started doing it was it is a forum for you to share your story and for us to have a substantive conversation, because you could easily go through, you know, your life day to day and not really have any kind of meaningful conversation. You just go to your job, do your thing, go home, go to sleep. But like, it's kind of rare unless it's with a close friend or a loved one that you're having, where you're really trying to, you know, get to see somebody else, you know, to understand where they're coming from, what they're working on, what they love, what they are afraid of. And so that's why I do this show, and I love, you know, talking with people like you. And so I appreciate you taking the time to do this on a evening after having worked all day. So
yeah, no, I'm stoked to have conversations like this. I try to have them with everybody.
yeah,
You know, there's a lot of people in my life, in my family, that I love deeply, and you know, that I can't have these kind of conversations with because they're just incapable.
yeah,
Maybe they don't want to go there. Maybe they're too afraid to like talk about what their truths are or how they're feeling, or because, you know, in our society we're not afraid, but we're kind of taught that being vulnerable is a weakness.
right.
And I think it's not.
No.
You know, so I have relationships with people in my family that I wish were better.
Yeah.
You know, that I wish they were more like some of the relationships I have with my friends. And when you're honest with people and you're telling them that you're feeling sad or lonely or you're having trouble with something, it's honestly a beautiful thing, because you're being truthful about, and you're living in your truth and allowing them to see you in that,
Right.
while simultaneously giving them an opportunity.
Yeah.
Because if you're scared or you don't know how to do something and you tell someone that, the person that you're telling that to can step up to the plate and say, "Oh, let me help you," or, "Dude, there's nothing you need to be fearful of." Like, I do it all the time. Like I have trouble like envisioning the grand scheme of my life.
Yeah.
And where I'm going with this brand, because there's a part of me that just doesn't think that I'm worth it in a weird way, or like no one's really going to like what I'm doing, you know, which is obviously not true, because I make a lot of surfboards and I have a lot of return customers, and obviously people are super stoked on what I'm doing. But, you know, I have a really hard time like envisioning like my future and like creative visualization. And I've been more honest with the people in my close circle about that stuff. And, you know, even having someone say like, "Dude, you're so crazy, man. Like, you don't see yourself this way other people see you. It's just, it's bizarre."
Right.
And I don't. And having someone say that to you, it's like a little extra battery in your back.
Yeah,
You know
absolutely.
what I mean? It's like, it gives you strength, you know. It gives you like, it revitalizes like the belief in yourself that like you should have, you know. I don't know, it's just the way that we were raised here, you know, and the conversations that we have trying to break that mold is like really hard.
Yeah.
but it's fun. It's really fun, and it's fun being that honest with yourself and being honest with other people like that.
That's it for this episode. Thank you all for listening. This is Ty, your host, and also thank you to Joe Falcone. For anyone interested, log on to www.falconesurfboards.com to see some of Joe's work and to maybe order yourself a board. That's www.falconesurfboards.com. See you next time.